What's going on with the Pistons front office search, and how should Pistons be feeling about the fifth overall selection 2 days removed from the NBA draft lottery? We're going to talk about that as well as some other things in just a moment.
Passing lane, sky's a jam. Dynamite dunk, and the crowd loves it.
Welcome back to Pistons Intellect. I'm your host, Jack Kelly. You can follow me on Twitter at Jack_Kelly_313. You can also follow us over on Instagram at Pistons_Intellect. And finally, as always, if you're feeling so kind, please hit that subscribe button. Now, today we are going to hit on a couple of topics. Spoke about it towards the end of my last episode, but it's currently Tuesday night for me. I assume by the time my friends in the US are watching this, it'll be Tuesday morning. So this is going to be one of two regular shows I'm going to be doing throughout the off season, ready for you guys on Tuesdays and Friday mornings. So anyway, today we got an update on the Pistons president of basketball operations vacancy and what's going on there. And before I get into the reporting from James Edwards and Shams from The Athletic, just wanted to touch on a report that was put out by Jake Fisher from Yahoo yesterday. And it was a bit of a grim one, but I wanted to bring it up. It was going to be what I led the show with today in terms of the main topic, but Jake Fisher, there was two takeaways I had from this article. The first one was that Fisher reiterated the fact that whoever gets this president of basketball operations position, he will have, in Jake's words, they will have agency to dismiss Troy Weaver. So the reason I bring that up is because it's not new news, but it kind of just feels like the longer this goes on, I just really feel like Troy Weaver won't be here. Which I'm guessing many of you will probably be happy to hear. So I wanted to reiterate that. And then we got further confirmation that the Bucks GM, John Horst, his interview was blocked. We already kind of knew that, but this doesn't fully eliminate him from the becoming the Pistons president of basketball operations. It just makes it extremely unlikely. And James and Shams kind of later reported that, the Pistons have kind of looked elsewhere now. So John Horst, the Michigan native, doesn't sound like he's going to be the president of basketball operations. And then Neil O'Shea, who was a name mentioned early on, just after the season ended, the former Portland Trailblazers GM, he actually declined an interview with the Pistons. So it was a bit of a grim report because Neil O'Shea, I don't think many Pistons fans wanted him, but having someone turn down the position was, I don't know, it's not a nice feeling. So, but that kind of leads me to the report today from James and Shams from The Athletic. James Edwards III, obviously the Pistons beat writer. Plenty of stuff to get here, but where I want to start is Tim Connelly, and is it actually realistic that the Pistons could lure one of the best executives in the NBA? Quick background on Tim Connelly. He was with the Nuggets for 10 years, I believe, from the early 2010s to around 2022. He helped kind of build that roster that the Nuggets have right now with Nikola Jokic, Jamal Murray, Michael Porter Jr., Aaron Gordon, KCP, maybe that was a signing the offseason he left. Nonetheless, their core four pieces, Tim Connelly was there and was, one of the major architects behind that team. He then went to the Timberwolves in the summer of 2022, made that the trade for Rudy Gobert, which at the time was really cool, but seems to have worked in the Wolves' favor, although they have dropped off these past two games in the playoffs. They've had a really good season. I believe they're the number one. No, they're the number 3. My mistake. Anyway, Timberwolves were top 3 seed in the West. They had an excellent season. And, there's still a really good chance they beat the Nuggets and move to the Western Conference Finals. So, excellent resume. And Connolly's been a name linked or just thrown around in the mix for the president of basketball operations position. And today, James and Charles reported that part of the holdup in the Detroit process for finding this new leader is Detroit appears interested in making a run at Minnesota Timberwolves head executive Tim Connelly. Now, Connelly is expected to opt out of his contract with the Timberwolves. Now, that's to do with he still has another 3 years, I believe, with the Wolves. When he signed there in 2022, it was a 4-year, $50 million deal, but I believe he's opting out. He has a clause where he can opt out because there's so much turmoil with the ownership. Doesn't mean he's leaving the Wolves, but I think he's going to look to restructure a deal or something like that. So there is a chance the Pistons can get him. Now, Shams and James report that Connelly is expected to opt out of his contract with the Timberwolves, even if he intends to stay with the franchise. It's considered likely he returns to the Wolves, but an offer from the Pistons worth approximately $15 million per season could sway the decision. Now, this is the Tom Gores special. Last year it was Monty Williams, Tom Gores, which at the time he made the largest offer for a coaching contract in NBA history and paid Monty, I think it was a massive amount of money. It was like 6 years. It was like 6 years, $80 million. It was something crazy. It was the most at the time. I think it's still in the top 3 or 4 right now. And, for all this is kind of the tricky thing with the Tom Gores experience for me, at least, because I feel like he will offer that $15 million annually. Like, I truly think when you look at the history of Tom Gores, he's not afraid to spend. And it's kind of like the weird feelings I have with Tom Gores, because I know there's some off-court stuff with how he's made his money and kind of people's thoughts around that. But if I just look at it from him as a basketball owner, like franchise owner, he's always been willing to spend. I don't know if the Pistons have paid the luxury tax, but they haven't really had a team worthy of that. But I feel like he's a guy who would pay the luxury tax. As I just mentioned, the Monty Williams contract, even the Dwayne Casey, say what you want about the Dwayne Casey hiring. It might not have been the young up and coming coach, but he was coming off Coach of the Year. I'm sure he was highly paid. And I would imagine that Cade Cunningham's going to sign a max extension, and Tom Gores won't have any issues offering him that. He was paid a big hand in Andre Drummond's max extension back in 2017, I think that was. So, yeah, I think Tom Gores will offer that. So, if I could truly see that happening, because Tom Gores is a guy who will pay up. So, I guess now, it sounds like Connelly, if you look at the Pistons, it's probably, I'm not going to say it's the worst job in the NBA, because it's not, but they have one true franchise player in Cade Cunningham. They have 3 young lottery picks in Jalen Duren, Ivy, and Asar, who, none of them last season had amazing seasons. Asar started really hot. Jalen Duren started really hot. Jaden Ivey had a really good stretch around the All-Star break, but none of them overall, I think it'd be hard to say they had really successful seasons. Maybe Asar, because he's a rookie, but definitely Duren and Ivy didn't progress much from their rookie season at all. So, look, and then when you look at the assets, they still owe that pick to the Knicks. I believe they can start to now trade their 2028 pick and that further. But it's not the best set of assets. They have the most cap space in the NBA. So you kind of get somewhat of a blank canvas with this team with some young talent, but, it'd be a big decision for Connelly to step away from the Timberwolves. There would have to be such turmoil in the ownership and for him to leave, I feel like. And if he was to leave, I feel like maybe another team might try to pry him. I don't know. That's just my thoughts. But maybe another team wouldn't be willing to offer him that $15 million. That's the thing. That's kind of a theme that's going to feel like for this whole offseason with the Pistons is they're going to have to overpay for anyone and anything to come to this team just because of the position they're in. So personally, I'm pretty certain that $15 million or whatever Connelly would cost to come to the Pistons doesn't go against the cap or anything like that. I believe it's similar to the coaching thing. So I don't care how much, like if Tom Gore's offers him 20 million a season, I truly don't care because it doesn't affect how the Pistons can spend their money on their players. As long as it doesn't affect that, I don't care how much he offers. And I kind of feel like Tom Gores is a guy, like I've just reiterated, who'll be willing to make that huge offer, because I feel like he's going to be a major driver, whether you like it or not, in this offseason for some of the moves the Pistons make. And if he's going to be in the decision-making to help make this team accelerate their rebuild, I would rather it be in hiring the right guy to make the basketball decisions rather than him having a say and, him having say over Troy Weaver and Monty Williams rotations. I'd rather him go out, get Tim Connelly and make that happen. But look, if I had to put a percentage on it, it still feels really unrealistic that Tim Connelly ends up in Detroit. But the reason I have a slither of hope, as I've just mentioned numerous times, is because I feel like Tom Gores isn't afraid to spend. So let me know your thoughts. It still feels like a bit of a pipe dream, but the fact Shams and James mentioned it and the fact they kind of threw a price tag on it, even if it's just a number they're throwing out there, it's super interesting. And I feel like there is a chance. So I don't think James and Shams would put this report together and lead their article with the figure of 15 million if they hadn't heard those kinds of things thrown around in their discussions with people they've spoken to within the organization around the NBA. So let me know your thoughts on that and how likely you think it could happen. Second point, which was also from James's article, is they kind of just went through some of the other candidates for the front office position, and there was 3 names that were mentioned. I'm not necessarily sure if these are the front runners behind Connelly, but kind of feels like it goes Connelly, then these 3 names. They were Pelicans GM Trajan Longdon, Dallas's Dennis Lindsay. He's currently in an advisory role with the Mavs. Then Chicago's GM Mark Eversley. So it sounds like those are the 3 names who've kind of, like I just said, are behind Connelly in kind of who the Pistons might be looking at. Just a very quick background on each. Langdon, as I just mentioned, currently with the Pelicans, been with the Pelicans since 2019. He was a scout with the Spurs from 2012 to 15, then was assistant GM with the Nets from 2016 to 19. Dennis Lindsay, currently with the Mavs in an advisory role. He had several roles with the Utah Jazz between 2012 and 2021, including general manager and executive vice president of basketball ops. So he has experience there. Langdon, as I mentioned before, doesn't necessarily have that, hasn't worked in that title of president of basketball operations, but like he's been a GM. But that's where kind of Lindsay seems to have that experience. And then Mark Eversley, as I mentioned, currently GM of the Bulls, was on the Pistons' radar in 2020 before they hired Troy Weaver. And then he's been in front offices for the past 15 years, including places like the Raptors, Wizards, Philly, before the Bulls. Now, brief thoughts on this. Mark Eversley, like I said, just the way the Bulls have operated since he's been there kind of scares me. They've been reluctant to make moves. I don't think they'd made a trade in over a year, that team. I liked what they had before Lonzo's knee became as bad as it is, but they re-signed Nikola Vucevic last offseason to what was a reasonable deal, but just I don't think, as an outsider looking in, I don't really get that move. I know you want competent players, but Vooch, I just feel like, he's a tough sell. DeRozan kind of feels like maybe they held on to him for a season too long. And then the Zach LaVine situation. I'm not sure he was there to do the Zach LaVine extension, but Kobe White's kind of worked out, but like I said, I don't think he was there as the GM when that pick was made. But I don't know, just the way the Bulls have operated in the past 3 years since he's been there as the GM, I'm just not. That's a name I'm not too keen on. So, yeah, those are the 3 names. Let me know your thoughts on those. I don't have a whole heap right now. I don't overly feel comfortable giving like strong takes on these kind of guys. But those are the names mentioned, and I'd be very keen for you guys to educate me and let me know your thoughts in the comments below. Now, final thing where I want to finish is thoughts on pick 5. By the time you're watching this, we're pretty much 2 days removed from finding out Detroit will be picking 5th. Still disappointed, still feel for Pistons fans, still kind of, not in disbelief. It's just, I still just can't believe like this team failed to pick 5 and hit the worst case scenario, worst possible outcome for the second straight season in the draft, but just with the way the season went. But anyway, I vented and let those thoughts out on yesterday's episode, so go check that out if you want to hear some ranting and raving. But I kind of just had a think today about pick 5, and I'm still in the camp of trading it. But The Athletic, ESPN, Yahoo, and one other major outlet who slipped my mind. Basically, the 4 major outlets where you probably go look for mock drafts all had the G League Ignites, Matas Buzelis mock to the Pistons at 5. Now, so I just thought I'd give some very brief thoughts on him. I posted about him on Twitter today and over on Instagram. But Buzelis with the Ignite were an absolute disaster. But Buzelis was a top 3 pick, I believe, coming into the season. He's a highly rated player. He's 6'10", 6'11". From what I've seen, been really like, I haven't done an extensive deep dive, but from what I've seen, I've really liked his feel. He can put the ball on the floor. He's kind of been comped to a Franz Wagner type, but with lesser passing, but kind of a better. He's more of like, from what I've seen, he's a much better like kind of rim protector than Franz. But when you look at the numbers, 26 games, 32 minutes a night, he pretty much averaged 14 points, 7 rebounds, 2 blocks a game, which I was impressed with. That was 4th in the G League. Shot 46% from the field. And then this is the part that Pistons fans will hate. He was 27% from 3, 68% from the line. So Matas, I believe, has spoken about this. Apparently, he had issues with his conditioning, which kind of led to, he's kind of attributed that to the less percentages. And to some extent, obviously, you have to take him on his word, because if you look at his high school numbers, someone commented this today on my Twitter post, which I found very interesting. So in high school, he shot 43% on threes on 3.5 attempts and was over 80% from the line. Now, it was noted that a lot of those threes were catch and shoot, but at that size and playing alongside someone like Cade, if he does become a Piston, I'm not too worried about him shooting off the dribble threes early on, if at all. So, look, in a lot of when I post about this, pretty much 80% of Pistons fans said no to him at pick 5, but because of those shooting numbers. But I think if you look at the stroke and you go look at some film, I don't want to sound like I'm coping or I'm ignoring the fact that those numbers, but the stroke looks nice. His touch, from what I've looked at, looks kind of nice, smooth, soft. I was pretty impressed, to be honest. It's very, very early. Like I said, I'm still in the camp of trading the pick if the deal's right and if you can get some form of difference maker or some form of really high level starting type of role player. But I don't know, 6'10", 6'11", 2 blocks a game, provides weak side rim protection. It feels like can switch a little. I've heard people even mention maybe he can play at the 5. which that would be, to me, game-changing. I'm not sure he's got the strength, but that's something you could grow into. Maybe defensively playing at the 5 full-time, that's another type of deal. But yeah, that size intrigues me, the ball handling. Passing might not be there, but he's got some sort of passing feel. Like, he's not like a complete, guy who can't make any form of passing. So I'm going to have to do a lot more research, but I don't know. Go watch some tape of Matas. Like, I know we're all still kind of upset about maybe not getting Alex Sarr, or who knows, Alex Sarr might be available at 5. I know that sounds crazy, but from everything I'm reading online and that kind of thing, anyone can kind of go anywhere. Like, I know Alex Sarr's probably going to go number 1, but if Buzelis is available at 5 and the Pistons are going to draft a player, I'm intrigued. And the other thing to note is Martas's agent is Michael Tallum, who is the son of Arn Tallum, who is the vice president of the Pistons, I believe. So everyone knows Arn Tallum, and there's a clear link there. So I would dare say that's kind of a fair reason why a lot of these major outlets have Martas mocked at 5 to the Pistons as well. Yes, he kind of makes a little bit of sense from a basketball standpoint. Yes, he might be the 5th best player in this draft right now. But, these major outlets and people like Jonathan Givony, Sam Vicini are very well connected and talk to people in front offices and talk to scouts. And this is a very heavily... The thing I've learned just from doing content and even talking to people, I don't know many people in organizations, but I know a few. And the thing I've learned is that relationships play a much bigger factor than you would ever realize than I ever realized before I started making content and talking to some people here and there. Relationships between player agents just have a lot of power. So that's something I've learned that I had no idea about before I got into this. I thought it was just the GM and the players, but no, the player agents have a huge amount of power, not just with the current player that they have with said team. It can also, if one team has forms a bad relationship with an agent, that might hamper their chances of getting players in the draft later down the line, or free agents later down the line. So anytime you see a link between a specific agent and a team, like I just mentioned with the Pistons, don't be surprised if that player ends up in Pistons colors or said team's colors. But yeah, let me know your thoughts on Martas. I need to do a lot more draft study, but just from the past 24 hours, he's the guy that everyone had mocked to the Pistons. So I thought I'm going to have a deep dive, take a look, and I don't know. This is going to happen. We're going to get excited about. Eventually, if you aren't yet, I feel like in a few weeks' time, you'll start getting excited about who the Pistons could take at pick 5. It just happens. And I'm already falling into that. But like I said, I'm still in the camp of trading it, but I also know that pick 5 might not get you a lot back. So I am coming to terms with taking a player and Martas. I don't know. I had fun watching some of his clips, so I'd recommend going to do that. But I think that'll do it for today's show. As I said off the top, we're going to be doing 2 episodes a week, all off season, ready for you guys to watch on Tuesdays and Fridays. So until Friday, as always, go Pistons.